Percent of the time, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative.
It's not. It
Gets the people going.
You're now listening to Diagnonsense.
Look at all this damage!
With Justin Pendergrass and Kurt Honak.
You are a sad, strange little man.
Then we would just be idiots saying nonsense.
We're going to give our viewers an existential crisis. It's going to be like...
I love giving our listeners an existential crisis. It's actually
sounded so seductive.
Would you like to get really existential with me?
All right, shut it down.
Shut it down. Got it.
Moving on to the next thing, because Isaac, however... we're not going to do housekeeping again. We're just going to talk about something else.
We're not going to do housekeeping again. That's fine. I concede that we're not going to do housekeeping again.
I'm sick of hearing you.
Good.
No. I just like playing devil's advocate with you.
Yeah.
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 Half the stuff I say on here, I don't actually know anything about.
I didn't know anything about what we were talking about.
Yeah, we were just
I'm
rambling
I'm
for
still
an hour.
learning about it.
Yeah, we were just rambling for an hour.
Yeah, we're just teeing it up. We're just teeing it up. We can come back to it.
Yeah, that's
true. We just
true.
need some, like, college psychologist professor to, like, break it down for us. I still won't understand it, probably. I mean...
That's okay.
I don't need to understand it.
Thank you guys for tuning into Diagnonsense. This is the second half of our last episode. I'm your host, Justin Pendergrass. I'm here with Kurt Honak, and we're going to talk about some other stuff.
So the problem is that you just teed up the intro again.
Yep.
But, like... So no one had to know that we are recording this right after we recorded our last episode, which now has released 2 weeks ago. But so now that you said that, you just ruined it. Like we might as well have just like recorded a whole different episode. This is the same audio file.
We just went into a really good soft open there, and I just wanted to roll with it, okay?
Okay.
You can judge whatever you want. I want people to know that we recorded this at the same time, Isaac.
Okay. Well, we did.
And we did.
Because I have to take time off, and that's okay because we're the content kings.
We're actually pretty mad about it.
Because we're the content kings, we're just going to keep rolling out content because that's what we do. But now, because you did that, I'm going to do a housekeeping segment.
No! I'm ending the housekeeping.
I'm housekeeping
you already said
for like
you wouldn't.
3 weeks in the future. All I know is that International Overdose Awareness Day is on August 31st, which I've already said today like 30 minutes ago when we're recording this.
Isaac, that's enough.
But I don't know what else has happened because at this point we're too far in the future, and I don't know enough about the planned behavior theory, whatever it's called, the theory of planned behavior, to predict what the world is going to look like in 3 weeks. So hopefully everything's fine.
Well, if you just become a metaphysical wizard, you can just do housekeeping for the end of time right now.
For
you
all
can just
I know.
keep doing it over
At this very moment, Isaac is a married man.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
When will this episode release? You could be married, dude.
What's today?
We're
Friday?
in the future. Unless she,
so that
changes her mind.
No, but it is my bachelor party right now.
Is it?
It is.
Wow, no invite, whatever.
No, it's fine.
I'm not going.
Good.
Anyway, even if I was invited.
That's fine.
Me and Kurt are going to do a better bachelor party without
I just
you.
know that you don't golf. Did you want to go golfing?
Yeah, I told you that already.
Well, I still want to go golfing, but like...
As your bachelor party?
No, we're golfing for my bachelor party, yeah.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
My buddy flew up from Seattle and a couple days before my wedding.
Yeah.
And he cut all of my groomsmen's hair.
Man.
That was my bachelor party.
I don't care.
No, it was rad.
I don't really care
It's
about your
going to be
bachelor
better
party.
than golfing.
Well, no, it's not.
Yeah, it is, dude.
Just going to be hanging out
Are you going to get a haircut?
Golfing. I already got a haircut.
No, you look ridiculous.
At least I have hair. Anyway, Kurt?
Yeah, well...
Yep.
I think that if we look at the learned behaviors, people actually are more accepting.
We're not talking
of bald
about that
guys.
anymore. We're not talking about that anymore because it's a different week, which we've already established.
Man, this has just been a hot mess.
That's okay.
Starring Isaac.
I saw this on, so a couple of people sent me this study, but I also saw this on Jimmy Dore, and it's talking about the main so the title of the article is called the Serotonin Theory of Depression, a systemic umbrella review of the evidence. This was published in Molecular Psychiatry on July 20th
Of this year?
Yep. So just a few weeks ago.
Nope, more than a month ago. When this releases.
Well, when this releases. That's
Yes,
true, yeah.
yes.
Almost 2
We're
months,
time
yeah.
traveling.
No, not almost 2 months.
We're time traveling.
Nope. You said July 20th?
Math.
But
No.
no, I wanted to talk about this just because this is a big deal.
No, this is super interesting, I think.
It's talking about the main areas of serotonin research provide no consistent evidence of there being an association between serotonin and depression, and no support for the hypothesis that depression is caused by lowered serotonin activity or concentrations. Some evidence was consistent with the possibility that long-term antidepressant use reduces serotonin concentration. So that's a lot.
That basically says that the entirety of the behavioral health system pushing medications for depressed individuals has been flawed, which is what you've been arguing for years, Kurt.
I have.
Interesting.
It's and I skimmed through this. Apparently
some
it's
pin
a
notes.
big study. I suspected this when I read Robert Whitaker, Anatomy of an Epidemic, and they're saying in the 1970s the cerebral spinal fluid for serotonin was not consistent with people having depression, meaning that, like, if I remember correctly, what I read from it was essentially like there was no correlation between people being depressed and how much serotonin was in their cerebral spinal fluid. So that for me was already an area of like suspicion that there wasn't a connection. I think if you read enough of the research, you kind of like can validate it from your own subjective kind of view that there wasn't a connection between the serotonin, but this is just another nail in the coffin of that theory.
Is this a theory as well?
This is a study that they did.
Okay, so
and this
there's
is a
actual
big-
evidence behind proving that this is.
Yeah.
Do you have some pen notes for us for this article that we can kind of chew on?
Yeah. So they're saying each member of the team was allocated 1 to 3 domains of serotonin research to search and screen for eligible studies using abstract and full text review.
Dang, so they sent it out to multiple different scientists.
Well,
I mean, I would hope so.
it looks like a meta-analysis of serotonin theory, right? So they're not just looking at like, one study saying, okay, it's connected or not connected. They're looking at, it says, for example, here, it's like, as no systemic review or meta-analysis has had been performed within the last 10 years on serotonin depletion, we also identified the 10 latest studies for illustration of more recent research and findings. So they're taking a meta-analysis, right? Is like where you take like multiple studies and crunch them together.
Yeah.
You're studying the studies. And so I'm just skimming through here, and I haven't, admittedly, I haven't read it as closely as I've wanted to, just because this kind of validates what I already suspected, and I think part of this was, in one of these studies, they use tryptophan depletion. So tryptophan breaks down into
Is that the stuff in turkeys
yep.
that makes you sleepy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one part of this was they talk about tryptophan depletion, and so part of the reason that tryptophan depletion is being used to study serotonin is because I believe how that works is tryptophan breaks down into 5-HTP. So have you heard about people taking 5-HTP after MDMA usage?
Yes.
Okay, that's because when you use MDMA, it screws up that serotonin axis. So part of the recovery for that is that people will take 5-HTP to help try and with the withdrawal.
Well, and it has something to do with the receptors that pick up on that stuff, right? In your brain.
And so they were like artificially depleting serotonin, and they're like, this study is essentially saying that I believe the takeaway is that there is not a connection between like how people are feeling and that tryptophan depletion. Yeah, so it says 8 studies conducted with healthy volunteers showed no effects of tryptophan depletion on mood, including the only 2 parallel group studies. One study presented effects in people with and without a family history of depression, and no differences were apparent in either group. So this is like, I mean, I could keep reading parts of the study off, but you know, to me, this is just confirms what I suspected, and I think it's a huge. I think people should be outraged at the fact that there is. It's like if you bought a car, right? And like the car came with a special kind of seatbelt and they told you to wear that. And that special kind of seatbelt is supposed to reduce fatalities. Well, you know, looking at the fact that these are actually depleting serotonin in the long run, it's like not only does the seatbelt not work, but maybe the seatbelt actually makes your accidents worse.
Yeah, the seatbelt is actually a garrote wire that slices your head off every time you get in an accident. Yeah,
well,
not great.
Well, and
Wow,
and
that was vivid.
Yeah.
that might be a dramatic sort of like
Analogy's limp.
analogy, but when you're talking about like, there's just all kinds of things. When you're talking about something that they've had to put a black box warning label on that causes suicidality, which can cause homicidality, right? Like, you're not just talking about something that it was like, oopsie, the thing doesn't work. It's like, no, oopsie, the thing makes the thing worse.
Yeah. Well, and,
you know, and it's like they had data to suggest that was true long before like we were around. Like,
it kind of makes sense to me, at least, because if you're doing something that artificially inflates your either the levels of serotonin in your system or your response to serotonin, then your body's natural response to that is to either decrease serotonin levels.
And see, you're not even
that's like basic logic.
You're
That's
not even a neurologist or a doctor, right?
Definitely
So
not
you're
a
just some
neurologist.
dude.
But that
makes sense to you, right?
That's it. That's all you are.
just some dude.
Just some dude.
But I mean, like that's like, it's like drinking. If you are drinking 5 beers every day for a month straight, by the end of that month, you're not even going to be buzzed from the 5 beers because you build up a tolerance, just like anything else with your body.
And a dependency. Right?
And a dependency, yes. And both of which are not great when we're talking about the chemical in your body that allows you to like feel happy.
Well, but that's the other part of it too, is that, right, if it's not linked to depression, then arguably people, you know, shouldn't be more depressed when it's depleted. But however, I even wonder about the connection there, because it's like, okay, so we know that people who are on them long term are showing less concentrations of serotonin, when in reality, you know, the premise was that you were correcting a chemical imbalance. But if part of the side effects of the drug are suicidality, you know, potentially, it's like, I'm not so sure that there's not a connection between negative mood outcomes. Maybe there's a stronger correlation between negative mood outcomes and positive mood outcomes, but what they're saying is the depression part of it anyway doesn't have anything to do with it. So,
well, and we've talked before about how a lot of these drugs are meant for short-term use, and people end up on them for, you know, years and years and years and years, and that's when stuff starts to break down.
I mean, I mean, but again, like, this is all that, even that's theoretical, right? Because it took, when I read about the FDA studying or finally talking about benzodiazepines causing dependency, it was like, took them 60 years to really get around to doing that. So what we're seeing today is, you know, in 5 years from now, who knows? Maybe they'll say, you know, it's even worse than because it was all theoretical to begin with. Like, there was no, and I think that this proves it, right? Because it's like, there's no connection between. So what you're telling me is, for decades they pushed a lot of.
Well, and maybe they're going to say that bath salts are the cure to monkeypox. Like, that's the thing is
Well, at this point, it gives him plausible
define cure.
deniability. Define cure.
It just
I'm just kidding. That was horrible.
doesn't. All of this is changing.
It's too dark.
So much, and we talked about this. We talked about this last week. Parentheses 30 minutes ago.
Right.
But how like 5-10 years from now, it's going to be a completely different landscape where we're learning like all of this new stuff, and we're going to have to be like, man, like that would have been nice to know 10 years ago, and now we have this problem that we have to try to solve, and so that's why I think no matter what study comes out that says anything, the one thing that I know, and I'm not saying that this is a solution for everyone because we're a big proponent of individualized care,
Right.
but the one thing that everyone can be doing to better their mental health, their physical health, is just healthy diet, exercise, human connection, self-care. Like there's so much stuff that you can do that doesn't require, altering your chemical balance, that doesn't involve, risking permanent damage, and that we know won't, even if it doesn't help you, even if you need something more, it's a good baseline to start at, because eating healthy and exercise is not going to break you long term if you're doing it right. Like that, like that is the one thing that I can be certain of, that it's like
tried and true. Yeah.
Right. Like, so it's tough when we talk about these articles,
Right.
for me to like fully get on board for something or against something, because yeah, like you said, in 5 years, like we're just going to know even more.
And I like what you said about the exercise and all that, but what about circumstantial depression? Like, right? Because there's not a lot of, you can do all of those things and then still be at home in a situation that you can't escape.
Right.
Right. Especially in the context of antidepressant.
And what we
depression.
work and where we work and what we do and who we're with. Like, understand that there are situations like, you could be doing anything and everything that you can. Like, I'm a huge advocate for what you're saying, Isaac, but I also see it on the other side of the fence too. Because myself, I went and I did everything that I felt I needed to do first.
Right.
And then I still took meds.
Well, and that's why I'm saying
on.
individualized care.
So I'm interested in learning more about this article, and the reason I've been quiet is because I don't know enough about any of this.
And it is a lot to
It's a lot to digest.
Yeah,
and I'm
it
just
is.
kind of hearing what you guys are saying, and I'm listening to the conversation. So I'm not being quiet because I'm upset or anything. I'm just saying, like, I have been quiet this whole time because I don't really know how to digest all of this.
Well, and this is something that I've been studying for, like, I've been reading books on for years now. And so it's like,
it's fascinating.
I get that. I didn't think you were, or I wasn't sure. So it's good that you said. Because,
yeah, I just wanted to make it clear to you guys and whoever's listening that I'm not quiet because I'm not in agreement. I'm quiet because I'm not understanding fully, and I don't have enough knowledge to really have an opinion on that piece. But when Isaac said what he said, like there are circumstantial depressions, there are situational depressions, and you can get away from those things, but some people are trapped in them.
Right.
Right. Well, especially when we're talking about like the people in our field of work, like
multi-generational substance abuse or
trauma, and just people
people
that are not adults yet. It's harder to escape those circumstances when you don't have
resources.
Yeah.
So what if rather than it being a lack of serotonin, it's more of like a traumatic brainwave rewiring?
Well, I mean, when you think about like ACEs scores, I mean, I think that's more like closer to what it is for a lot of people. Yeah.
So that's
my
interesting
personal
to me
take,
because I actually think that's true.
Yeah.
Because I definitely see it even in my own life. Like, so when I did the ACEs test, right, it's the scale from 1 to 10, 1 being not being like your life has been fairly like
0's like your life is, you have no trauma.
Right. But 1, I scale it at 1 because sometimes it's like, a lot of people have lost a loved one
right.
due to something.
Right.
Right. But then, then at 10, it's like, holy cow, dude. So when I did my ACEs test, I did mine with my parents as well, and both of my parents have 8. Right?
Right.
And then I have a 9. So understand that, like,
Right.
because of the trauma and the situations and the narrow things that happened with my folks, it rewired their stuff to where they weren't able to really deal with their trauma or understand how. And I'm having to break those things in my family.
Well, and so this is an interesting, let's go back to that, like the drinking analogy when we're talking about the body building a tolerance.
Yeah.
You didn't have a chemical change that stopped how your body processes serotonin. You had maybe an emotional change where it's a learned behavior that you have to turn off various aspects of how you feel or how you respond to life circumstances because of years and years and all this like generational trauma.
So like a way to protect yourself.
Right. Just like with the serotonin thing, or just like with the beers analogy, if you're drinking every day, if you're going through these experiences and these traumas every day, your body has to respond, even if it's not like a physical change, even like a mental or emotional change. Your body's going to respond somehow to that continued exposure to that trauma, and that will certainly change how you think and how you process emotions.
Well, and I think that there's that passive fear, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know that fear is
and
really
that's
there.
the anxiety.
You're right. It's a passive fear. So like one of my passive fears for a very long time and until recently I was able to kind of like beat that was that I would end up homeless again. Right? Until I bought my home, I had that fear.
Yeah.
And now I have a home and I'm able to sit there and be like, man, I'm never going to be homeless again. I never have to experience that situation because I've been put into a place where it's mine.
Right.
No one can take it from me. If I have to be a good steward of that, right? But,
Right.
But no one can take that from me. But for the first 27 years of my life, I had this, or not
Gosh,
even that
you're old.
long. The last 17 years of my life, 16 years of my life, or whatever it was,
Right.
I had this passive fear that I was going to end up in a situation that was not like an unwinnable circumstance again.
Right.
So I think that it's really interesting to talk about this topic right here about how the serotonin is affecting things and what it's actually not doing.
Right.
Because all we all know
Right.
is that it is.
Yeah.
And what this is basically saying is, no, you guys are wrong. You're actually harming your serotonin levels, and these are the ways that you should be correcting them. And those are through the diet stuff that Isaac's talking about and the things like that.
Right.
But also circumstantial things. It's
Yeah.
the ACEs score. It's
And-
all of these. There's so much more to it than just one chemical in your body.
Right. It's
that's
very
making up this whole emotional distress.
Right. It's very reductionist, I think, to sort of, but it was a theoretical science that, 70 plus years ago might have looked promising, but like, it's funny because Jimmy Dore mentioned on this show with like, he's talking about Tom Cruise went out like 15 years ago or so, was talking to Matt Lauer, on the Today Show, just going like, this is crazy that we're doing this experimental drugs on our kids. And like, and so it's funny. But it's tragic too, because part of my frustration is that we're like the common everyday dude like me, Isaac, Justin, we're just everyday dudes. We're supposed to be able to rely on the medical apparatus to be gatekeepers for this stuff so that we don't have to read the theory. I didn't want to read 2,000 pages on psychiatry and neurology to understand what was going on with me. And I feel like we had data for decades that I shouldn't have had to have done that. I feel like millions of Americans are probably feeling close to the same way about this. It could be wrong, but I just feel like, there's a certain amount of social disintegration in terms of but it goes back to responsibility, how much, the way our country is, we recognize the divine right to rule, right? And this is something I want to talk about in future podcasts too, but the freedom of religion. And so we have a high responsibility placed on our citizenry, but this is still, to me, a social betrayal of the common citizen. And I know that that's you can extrapolate that out, and that's very deep, but I just, this confirms more of that to me.
Yeah, and I definitely want to dive into that with you, Kurt. I think that we're running close to our time, and we should wrap up here quick. Just give me those brief overviews. Give me what's your takeaway from this, Isaac?
I mean, my takeaway is that I think kind of what I said earlier is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't surprise me that there is this study out here saying that, wow, there actually isn't a link between your serotonin levels and your likelihood to experience depression. But I think the individualized care is always what I'll go back to, and the holistic. It's just like a lot of other things in life. This subject is so multifaceted, and you have to be constantly challenging your beliefs to continue to learn about this stuff, because we're always getting new information, but you also have to be taking that multifaceted approach. You have to be eating right. You have to be, maybe you're seeing a therapist, or you're talking to friends or significant other, but you're getting that connection with people. You have that building block. You have your belief structure, whether that's faith-based or religion-based or not. You have all of these different pieces that you have to be working on to build this puzzle. Yeah. And the thing that this study shows me that is, I think, my most important takeaway is that the way that we're viewing how we approach mental health care, where it is faceted, it's one single facet. It's change Correct. The chemical in your brain, change how your brain processes these chemicals, or give your brain new chemicals, and jumble it all around, and then boom, you're golden. Isn't working, and it hasn't been working, and it will continue not to work unless you approach it from what's best for you as an individual, and unless you approach it from multiple angles.
Cool. I think that's fair.
Yeah. What about you, Kurt? What do you want to give us the final thoughts?
I think that there's no harm in doing your own research and not believing that, we talked about the theory of planned behavior on the previous one. So this is almost a self-fulfilling prophecy when the drugs say that, when the data is saying that people get worse on the drugs, and the institutions are pushing that people get, their mental health deteriorates. I think people, if you believe in yourself, there's a certain amount of value in believing that things are going to be okay, and having faith that things are going to be okay. And there's a certain amount of that's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you can, if you believe you're strong enough, you will be strong enough. And I feel like part of our mental health movement with personal connection is reinstilling that into people, so that there isn't so many people saying the sky is falling that we start to believe it when it's not.
Manifest that energy, baby. Believe in yourself.
Check out
Positive
the articles.
Vibes only.
Check out the articles linked in the
links in the description.
Give us your feedback. What are you thinking? What are you hearing? What are you studying? What's your theories? We'd love to hear that stuff. We'll take questions. We won't answer them on air. We will ignore them, but please do send them.
We
so
might
that we
answer
know that
them
you're
on air.
listening. We might answer them on air. It depends on the question.
It'd be cool to do like an all questions episode.
Yeah, that's
be
true.
fun.
Ask us questions. We need that.
Isaac at my house.
I have a question for you
Matsu.org.
guys. Do you think that Squidward is experiencing low serotonin levels?
If it's not linked to depression,
No,
then
he's
no.
He's not taking a holistic approach. He just goes to work.
That's
like
true.
He goes to work and he hates his neighbor, and that's the only thing that gives him joy in life.
Well, he does
Clarinet-
have his-
He just plays clarinet.
I do
Yeah, he
like
does
their
have his
opposite
music.
approach of the whole Flanders thing. Like he's the exact opposite of Flanders as a neighbor. I think that's funny.
You think that's on
Polarization.
purpose?
Yeah.
You do think that's on purpose?
SpongeBob and The Simpsons are the same.